Criminal Court in The Hague is contemplating issuing arrest warrants against senior Israeli government and military officials as war criminals. This would be an outrage of historic proportions. International bodies like the ICC arose in the wake of the Holocaust committed against the Jewish people. They were set up to prevent such horrors, to prevent future genocides. Yet now, the International Court is trying to put Israel in the dock. It's trying to put us in the dock as we defend ourselves against genocidal terrorists and regimes, Iran of course, that openly works to destroy the one and only Jewish state. Branding Israel's leaders and soldiers as war criminals will pour jet fuel on the fires of anti-Semitism, those fires that are already raging on the campuses of America and across capitals around the world. It will also be the first time that a democratic country fighting for its life according to the rules of war is itself accused of war crimes. Israel is not even subject to the court's jurisdiction, and it has an independent legal system that rigorously investigates all violations of the law.
An unprecedented sight. Israeli police raid Al Jazeera's workspace in occupied East Jerusalem after Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's cabinet voted to shut down the network's operations. The government order, which was unanimously agreed upon, includes confiscating its broadcast equipment, preventing the network's broadcasts, and blocking its websites.
The government has now unanimously ordered the closure of the incitement mouthpiece of Hamas in Israel, Al Jazeera.
Al Jazeera's broadcast was taken.
How are you? Let's do a time check here. We got 10:09, and let me know if you guys can see me here and you guys can hear me here. We got Scott Ritter sitting backstage. Going to bring him on in about 30 seconds. Just want to say hi to everybody. Good to see you all. Hopefully you guys had a great, fantastic weekend wherever you are. Yeah, some pretty interesting stuff, I must say, there at the beginning of our news clip. Well, no jurisdiction, he says. Let's bring on Scott Ritter to see what he's got to say about Benji. Scott, how are you? Thanks for joining us.
No, thanks for having me.
Well, we heard the opening commentary. Benjamin Netanyahu had some pretty stern words saying, this has got nothing to do with me. It's not in my jurisdiction. We have a democratic country in the Middle East, and everybody should pretty much follow what we do. Your thoughts on that?
I mean, he's the prime minister of Israel. He's allowed to say whatever he wants on behalf of Israel. I mean, technically speaking, the International Criminal Court does not have jurisdiction, or Israel does not recognize the ICC's jurisdiction. Neither does the United States. Neither does Russia. Neither does a whole bunch of nations in the world. The ICC, to be frank, has been shown to be an overly politicized organ. These are the same people that sought an arrest warrant for Russian President Vladimir Putin for the crime of kidnapping children, and suddenly they find 161 of these children or something like that are in Germany. Why aren't they arresting the German chancellor? Because it's political. We don't even know if there's an ICC arrest warrant. Let's just be frank about this. This is a rumor that was started in Israel by Benjamin Netanyahu. There's been no statement made by the ICC. They said that they would be investigating all crimes committed in Gaza. I personally think that the threat of an ICC warrant is a manufactured event by Israel to play on American sentiments, because the United States doesn't recognize the ICC. And what the Israelis are doing is saying, look, they're trying to arrest our soldiers for crimes committed while carrying out operations. And if they can do that to us, they can do that to you for all the similar stuff you did in Iraq and Afghanistan. That's what's happening here. And the United States, like the trained puppy dog we are, showed up and did what Israel wanted us to do. We condemned the ICC. We threatened the ICC. And we made Israel look good, like they're the good guys, which is something Israel desperately needed, because we were in the process of agreeing that genocide is taking place, and it didn't work. I'll tell you why it didn't work, because Netanyahu got the statements out of the White House and out of the Congress. But according to the New York Times, Biden has stopped the sale or stopped the delivery of ammunition to Israel. So, this was a political ploy by Netanyahu. So I think we waste too much time talking about, could the ICC do this? The ICC didn't, to the best of my knowledge, hasn't had anything to do with this. This is purely a fabricated event in the mind of Benjamin Netanyahu, designed to trigger a response in the United States that he would hope get the United States to gravitate more closely to the Israeli position on the eve of an Israeli military operation into Rafah, Gaza, which everybody would say is genocidal in nature. It failed because the United States continues to condemn Israeli preparations for a Rafah operation, and has suspended the sale of ammunition because of this. And if Israel goes into Rafah, I think you'll see even harsher U.S. response. So don't want to spend too much time talking about an ICC arrest warrant, because I don't think one exists. This was purely a political ploy by Netanyahu.
Scott, my question also is, we are seeing some pretty disturbing photos coming out in Gaza here. I mean, just absolute carnage, apocalyptic. I mean, you understand these bombs, the size of these bombs that are falling. I mean, is this area that they've pretty much annihilated, can people live in this in the next 5 years, 10 years? I mean, is it just scorched earth, or your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, one can only look at what happened in World War II in cities that were leveled. And of course, the cities were rebuilt and people lived there. One can look at Grozny, which was leveled and it's been rebuilt and people could live there. So there's no doubt that Gaza could be rebuilt and people can live there. But that's really not the question. The question is, why does Israel get away with continuing to bomb it? And Israel will. I mean, you talk about the photographs. To be frank, we're beyond the point where, I mean, it's literally, I'm not blaming the journalists for this, but you literally have to work harder each day to find something that would be more gory than the picture you put out the day before, the week before, the month before. At what point in time does a baby with its head squished and brains out stop shocking you? And we've seen a reaction. We've seen a reaction around the world amongst populations that demonstrate in support of a free Palestine. We see American students doing the same thing here. But I think we've reached an equilibrium, a balance, meaning that the people that are going to support Palestine are supporting Palestine, and the people that aren't going to support Palestine aren't supporting Palestine, and no photograph's going to change that. And so we're at that very tragic state in the conflict where Palestinian lives don't matter. Weighing anybody anymore. We've reached a saturation point in the number of dead, and so Israel is going to continue to kill because all the damage has been done. There's not going to be more damage done. The ICJ, International Court of Justice, has already found their actions to be genocidal. But who has stepped up and sanctioned Israel? Who has stepped up and we've had a handful of nations done, but we haven't seen the global community at large make move towards Israel. The Arab world right now, the United States is in the process of, on the one hand, condemning Israel's genocidal, but on the other hand, supposedly working with Saudi Arabia to cut a deal that would put Israel back into the mainstream. So this is like cutting a deal with Adolf Hitler in 1940. And, hey, that Auschwitz thing, just shut it down. We'll make it go away. Okay, but we're going to bring you back, and you're going to be part of the world community now. No, you don't let Adolf Hitler rejoin the international community. You don't let Benjamin Netanyahu. You don't let Israel, as it currently exists, join the international community. I mean, Israel. I just want to remind everybody that the Israel of October 7th is the same Israel that exists today. If you're calling Israel genocidal today, understand they were genocidal on October 7th, which is why October 7th happened, guys, which is why October 7th happened. Didn't happen in a vacuum. Israel is a nation that stands for things that are totally outside of the norm when it comes to international values, international law. It is a diseased nation, and we shouldn't be talking about how to bring Israel back into the fold of the international community. We should be talking about how to eliminate Israel as the cancerous entity it is and replace it with something where Palestinians, who we'll call Muslim, Christian, and Jewish, we should never, ever again talk about Israelis. The state should go away. We should talk about a singular Palestinian state where everybody gets to live. But the idea of a Jewish state in the Middle East that's allowed to oppress millions of people, that's an idea that nobody in the world should rally behind.
Yeah, I mean, these things are getting, as you say, a lot of people are just getting numb to seeing this on their television sets. And, we're past the point of the body count just continues to rise. Let's shift over to Ukraine. I've been reading some of the news out of there as well. We're seeing is this an expected offense for the Russians at this time? I mean, was this a planned event, or is it just because, the Ukrainians just can't hold back the force that the Russian army has at this time?
Well, I mean, if we think about it, Russia, has been executing a war of attrition. What's the purpose of a war of attrition? To wear the enemy down to where they can't do anything anymore. And then what happens when you do that? You go on the offensive. So, of course, this was a planned event. It's been planned from the very beginning to wear the Ukrainians down to absolutely nothing, and then to go over on the offensive and take advantage of the fact that the enemy no longer has the ability to resist. That's a smarter plan than beating your head up against a brick wall. You may bring the brick wall down, but you might bash your head in the process. Russia wasn't in the business of giving gifts to the Ukrainians. You can, the more desperate the enemy is, the more, I guess we're supposed to be unbiased. So the more, no, I'm sorry, I'm not unbiased. These are Nazis, Azov people. Sorry, they're the enemy of the world, not just Russia. So the more desperate the enemy is, the greater the lies they shall tell. So and oftentimes the lies are a mirror image of their own situation. So if they're suffering 1,000 men dead a day, which they are, immediately the Ukrainians and their proxies are going to say, Russia's suffering 1,000 men a dead day. Russia's not. Actually, the Russian level of casualties is the lowest it's been since the war began. That's not me or Russia saying it. That's a anti-Russian, pro-Ukrainian media outlet that's just counting the bodies, and they're saying the Russian casualties are the lowest level, while the Ukrainians are amongst the highest level. That's what wars of attrition do. You break the enemy down until they can't resist, and then you take your overwhelming superiority and you apply it on the battlefield in a meaningful fashion. I think it's notable that the Minister of Defense of Russia, Shoigu, recently came out, and in the past they talked about, a dynamic defense, an active defense. Of course, active defense means that you're defending, but where necessary, you can launch, counterattacks as the opportunity presents itself. And that's how they've always described their operation until recently. Now Shoigu says the offensive. It's the first time a Russian leader of that stature is talking about the offensive. And he's saying it in broad terms that Russia has transitioned over to the offensive. And this isn't just, language to throw away. The Russians, the way their military and their foreign ministry works, the way their government works, words mean something. You don't see Russian politicians, Russian generals, Russian diplomats out there spewing nonsense like you do in the West. In the West, we have people say things and the next day they contradict themselves because words mean nothing. The West is trying to craft perception, and so they try to shape perception by saying things that aren't necessarily fact-based, but they're just designed to get an emotional response. And then that changes day by day depending on what the emotional thermometer is of the political elite and what they want to accomplish. The Russians, on the other hand, are very practical, and they are very constrained in what they say. Some people, criticize. I oftentimes say that the Russians need to do a better job of, public relations, of information warfare. But I think that from the Russian perspective is why we're not going to get out ahead of ourselves. We're not in the business of contradicting ourselves. We don't want to have to be the person up there issuing a statement to correct what's said the day before. When we say something, we want it to mean something. We want it to have weight so that people aren't confused about what we want. If we want confusion, we just don't say anything. And that's what the Russians do. What are the Russians thinking? They're not saying anything. Now you've created confusion. Oh God, what are the, and then you have everybody else trying to think what the Russians are saying. But then the Russians say it, and the mistake that people make is they say, well, but they don't mean it. No. When the Russians speak, they mean it. Words have meaning. And so when Shoigu says we have gone over on the offensive, that's not just a word, that's a policy posture that's backed by deep-seated preparation beforehand, that he didn't just say that and then people are catching up. Before he makes that transition, they've had policy meetings saying, when we go over to the offensive, what do we need? What things have to happen? How many troops do we need? What's the sustainability? What do we expect to do? What happens if plan A goes south? Do we have a plan B? Do we have a plan C? They have all the answers figured out so that when they say we're going over the offensive, the next day they don't have to come out and go, oops, premature, we're back to active defense. Nope, they're over on the offensive. That means a strategic decision has been made that there will be no negotiated settlement to this war. See, active defense allowed the Russians to say, we're willing to stop this war at a given point. And we know this because we see the Istanbul communique that they negotiated with the Ukrainians, and there was specifically delineated geography. There was specific allocation of, what Ukraine was supposed to do as an entity, what Russia was supposed to do, everything of that nature. When you go over to the offensive, what you're saying is Russia is now in the business of destroying Ukraine. It's no longer an active defense, a war of attrition. Russia is now transitioned into the active destruction of Ukraine phase, and understand what happened at the same time, because again, the word means something. They have put Zelensky, Poroshenko, and a whole bunch of other people, Yermak, chief staff, and Danilov, they're all on a wanted list now. These are wanted criminals by Russia. Russia has said these people have committed crimes against Russia, against humanity, and shall be held accountable. That means that you don't negotiate with criminals. Anybody on that list can never sit down at a table and negotiate with the Russians. That's where we're at right now. Russia has basically turned Ukraine into a nullity, and that they're going to be in the business of destroying Ukraine. This is going to require Ukraine to come up with somebody who, if Ukraine ever wants to have a negotiation, and the negotiation won't be there. If you think of how this war is going to end, this isn't going to be about, Stalin sitting down with Hitler to negotiate the surrender of Berlin. No, Hitler put a bullet in his head. That's how this is going to end. The Ukrainian Hitler is not going to come out of this, and neither is anybody on those lists. They're finished one way or another. They're finished. What's going to happen is some general's going to come in and go, shoot, where's all the leadership? There's no leadership. The Russians are coming in. All my men are dying. Hey, Russia, white flag. We want to negotiate a surrender. And Russians are going to go, all you're going to negotiate is you're going to put your weapons down, tell your men to put your weapons down. But we want to talk about there is no future for you. We're going to let you live. You're going to put your weapons down. You're going to sign this document, just like General Krebs did in Berlin. And then it's over. Then we dictate the outcome. You get no say because you have surrendered unconditionally. That's the only way this ends, is the unconditional surrender of Ukraine. And you've seen Western nations like France, we're going to put troops in there. Russia doesn't care. They're over on the offensive. So the 1,500 French troops that they're talking about bringing in will all die. Poland is looking at that. And the Polish defense minister just came out and said, I just want to make sure everybody understands, under no circumstances will Poland put troops into Ukraine, because the Poles understand what's about to happen. It's over. It's finished. The Russians are in the business of going on the offensive, and they will roll through Ukraine until Ukraine unconditionally surrenders. That's where we're at right now.
But I mean, Scott, if that does happen, then that
not
changes.
If, Alex, not if, Alex. I'm telling you, words mean something. The Russians aren't in the if game. I just need to reiterate that point so it's clear to you and all of your listeners. There is no if, ands, or buts. Russia is on the offensive. This will only end with the unconditional surrender of Ukraine. There's literally no other option on the table, and you're wasting people's time to suggest there is, because there isn't.
When it happens, then,
yep.
Does that change the complete geopolitical landscape of Europe as we move forward into the future? I mean, will they finally say, okay, Russia's not going to take it anymore? And
Russia already said that. It's not like Russia's going to reiterate what they've already reiterated. Russia's in Ukraine because they said, we're not going to take it anymore. The whole geopolitical picture was changed when Russia made that move. It's taken a little bit of time for the West to realize that, but Russia made its position known. There is no modification of the Russian position. What I mean by that is Russia isn't going to take Ukraine and go, screw it, Poland, you're next. The Baltics, we got your number. Romania, we're eating you up too. That's the Western fantasy. Russia's not in that business. Russia is going to finish this war, and then Russia is going to get into the business of working with the West, as they wanted to do back in December of 2021, to come up with a new European security framework, which has already been framed out by the Russians. That geopolitical reality is put down there in black and white. That's where we're at. This isn't about Russia taking over Europe, Russia doing this. You know, whatever changes that come from Europe are self-inflicted changes. Russia didn't seek to destroy Europe's economy. That's a self-inflicted wound by Europe by sanctioning Russia. Russia didn't seek to collapse NATO. That's a self-inflicted wound by NATO by getting involved in a proxy conflict and overcommitting to it and being beaten by the Russians. Russia's not in the business of defeating NATO. Russia's not in the business of defeating Europe. Russia's in the business of preserving Russia. The one thing this war has done is it has fast-tracked the transformation of Russia, the final phase of the transformation from the chaos of the 1990s to this new Russia. You're going to see it on May 7th. That's tomorrow. Vladimir Putin is going to be sworn in as the president of Russia. He won an election where 77% of the population participated in the election. That's a huge number. And of that population, 88% of them voted for Vladimir Putin. This is an unprecedented mandate. And you say, well, why does he need a mandate? You know, he's a dictator. He's this, he's that, he's the other thing. There was nobody running against him. Well, what was running against him was Russian history. Russian history was running against him. And Vladimir Putin, now with this mandate, and this mandate can only happen. Why do you think he got 77% turnout? Why do you think he got 88% support? Because the West went to war against Russia using Ukraine as a proxy. The Russian people today are more patriotic than they've ever been. They've been forced to take a look at the West that they once were willing to sell their soul to be part of. That's what the 1990s was all about. Russia saying, we want to be so much like you. We don't like ourselves. We don't like who we are. We don't like our history. We don't like our culture. We want to be like you. Please, please, please. And the West wouldn't. We kept them begging because we wanted them down. We were never their friends. Putin comes in and he's making this transition. But it's a difficult transition to make because the corruption of the West was so insinuated throughout Russia. The oligarchs, you know, how the governments worked and the governors and all the way down to the mayors, everything was just corruption, corruption, corruption. Putin comes in and slowly starts to turn things around, fights the corruption, tries to bring back a semblance of law to rebuild the pride of Russians in Russia. And he was doing a good job, but there was still this residual, you know, element within Russia that just didn't want to give up. You had 20 to 30% of, you know, the political and economic elite that were already woven into the Western fabric, and they didn't want to leave. They were like, no, the West will always be there for us. Well, you had the oligarchs who were like, we want to make money. Money. We want to make money. And you still have the corrupt people in the middle playing. Putin is slowly working on this, but it's very difficult. The West sanctions Russia after he goes into Ukraine. And remember, Ukraine is a Western-driven event. Putin wouldn't have gone into Ukraine unless the West provoked him. William Burns wrote a memorandum in 2008 that proves that point. The first thing they do is they sanction Russia, including the oligarchs. Dumbest move in the world. That shows you how stupid the West is. The West should have said the oligarchs are the people we're going to do business with. We're going to disenfranchise the Russian government. We're going to re-enfranchise the oligarchs. Should have done that. Because now Russia would have been looking at the lifeline, and it would have been tough for Putin to say, well, I'm going to shut down the oligarchs because my economy collapses. It is a democracy in Russia. You get those people to come up. Putin's winning by 57%. He loses 30% support. He's down to 27%. And he's the former president of Russia at this point in time. So we made a mistake. We sanctioned the oligarchs. And Putin's sitting there going, thank you. You just helped me solve a problem that I couldn't solve. How do I get rid of the oligarchs? You just did it for me. And almost immediately Putin said, y'all get the hell out of here. You got your money over there. Go live with your money. They've stolen your money. Don't come crying to me. But no. Those days are over. We're done. And he restructured it. And now we got one of the reasons why Russia's going through this economic miracle is all that money the oligarchs used to steal has to be reinvested back into Russia. And it's a lot of money because Russia is a cash generating economy. And they're reinvesting it back in. Cities are growing. Neat things are happening. That's the big gift. You got rid of the oligarchs. And Putin's going, wow, that was easier than I thought it would be. And now he's restructured his economy. The second thing is the West divorced itself from Russia. So that 20 to 30% of the people that were woven in, see, if Putin had generated a divorce, all the resentment would be towards Putin. I'm cutting off relations with the West. We hate you, Vladimir Putin. The West was nice. They fed me. They did that. We hate you. We're not going to vote for you. But instead, the West went, we divorce you, Russia. And Putin went, thank you again. Because now all these guys are going, well, they can't blame Putin. It's the West that did it. And now a lot of them fled. And you know what's happening? The million, hi, Russia. We miss you. They don't like us here. They don't like us here. I want to come home. And Russia's going, okay, come on home. We'll take you. Welcome back to the new Russia. And that's the thing. It's a new Russia. And here's the third and final part. Putin still hesitated to make the final move to cleanse because, this corruption, and it's not corruption in the Western sense. It's the way of doing business that tolerates processes that are outside of the rule of law. nepotism and favoritism and this, that, and the other thing. Russians like predictability, but predictability is based upon, an understanding that, how things work. But this other way was like, we know how that works, but I'm going to meet with you. You're going to hand me an envelope, and next thing you know, things are going to happen, and you're going to be the one getting the contract, not the people over here. That's still there. Well, May 7th, Putin gets inaugurated, and he's going to purge the living crap out of Russia after that. And I'm not talking about violent purges. I'm not talking about, dragging people out the streets. He's just basically going to tell all the people, sort of what he told the oligarchs. You got your money, you got your houses, you got your cars, take them, and that's it. You're done. We're bringing in the next generation of people who love Russia. And that's what this war has done. This war has retrained Russians to love Russia. They no longer look to the West and say, oh, you're so much better than we are. They're looking at Russia saying, hey, we're pretty damn good. And now that they say we're pretty damn good, they're looking around going, that Tchaikovsky, he was pretty cool too. We got that big opera house. Why don't we? Wow, we have real culture here. We have the opera. We have Swan Lake. We have Tchaikovsky, Tolstoy, Pushkin. We have great literature. We're a great nation. We have a great church. We have a religion. We're falling in love with it. And Russia has fallen in love with itself at the same time. They're at war. And you know what happens when you're at war? And Russians go to war different than anybody else. They don't just send their soldiers to war. The nation goes to war. I mean, again, if this World War II started Magnitogorsk, a city in Russia, steel town. That they have a monument called the Home Front, and it's a steel worker standing there with a soldier, and they're lifting a sword, and the steel worker transferring the sword to the soldier. That shows the home front, the linkage between the workers who build the defense industry goods, the weapons, and the soldier who receives it. That's the same sword that Mother Russia holds aloft at Maya Kurgan as she urges Russia forward. The motherland calls, move, drive the Nazis out. Same sword in Berlin, where the Russian soldier has a sword in the ground, but he's holding a child. The war's over. Same sword at the United Nations, where they're turning it into the sword being turned into a plow. The Russians do this thing as a nation. Not any other nation does it. They do it. And so now the Russians have bought into this war as an existential struggle against the West, which means the whole nation is behind this. And you know what they don't tolerate during wartime when men are putting their lives on the line? Corruption. And so Putin now has a nation at war that has zero tolerance for corruption, that has learned to love itself, that is madly in love with itself, very proud of itself. So he's going to come in and push that final purge button. And the Russia that's going to emerge is going to be a brand new transformed Russia that's stronger than ever, because for the first time in a long time, they believe in themselves. They're proud of themselves. They don't feel inferior to anybody. They don't feel superior, meaning they don't walk around saying we are the world's hegemon. But what they're saying is we are Russians. And for them, that's good enough. We are Russians. We are proud of being Russia. And this is the geopolitical change that you're talking about. It's not about Russia playing stupid Western. The West always mirror images its stupidity on Russia. So the West is in the business of playing a chess game and you're moving pawns around. Russia's not in that game. Ukraine, Russia, we're proud of being Russia. That's where we're at. You guys got to learn to live with it. That's the Russian approach. Words matter. It's very simple. It's actually very predictable.
I was looking at a couple of figures here while you were chatting away. They're talking about, the home ownership in Russia is skyrocketing, and the amount of people that do actually own properties without mortgages are one of the highest countries in the world that don't have mortgages on their properties. I mean, this country is, as you say, it's patriotic, but it's also very loyal to itself. And when you use that term, it fell back in love with itself. I mean, if you see the average person, Yeah, there are, economic struggles everywhere around the world. But if you think about, the biggest thing that people are very concerned about is a home. And most Russians, for most part, have always had that type of planning going for many years. And now the country's under conflict. I think they've done a remarkable job in the last couple of years. You've been there. You've seen it. I mean, this is a country that had over 16,500 sanctions thrown at it. It's been cut off by the world banking SWIFT system. Visa, MasterCard, American Express, for most part, has been cut off. Their travel industry has been pretty much locked. The airline business is pretty much, been grounded for foreign airlines come in. And the people are saying, you know what? So what? We got a great country, as you said. We have amazing things going on. Let's take a good look at our country one more time. And I mean, Scott, you were there. What were your thoughts? I mean, you have firsthand knowledge. You were on the ground there. What was it like?
Well, I mean, I was on the ground and I tried to get, and see as much as I could. In fact, I'm heading back in June to see even more. We're going to go to parts of Russia that the West isn't familiar with, and we're going to introduce it to the West. Because, when Tucker Carlson went over there, did his famous interview with Vladimir Putin, he was heavily criticized by people who said, well, you were just in Moscow. Okay, so you're saying Russia's good, but that's just Moscow. What about the rest of Russia? When you get outside of Moscow, Russia sucks. Russia's this dirty nation. They don't have flushing toilets. They don't have this. They don't have that. Blah, blah, blah. And a lot of people in the West are going, yeah, Russia sucks. They don't know anything about Russia. Russia doesn't suck. I mean, Moscow obviously has a lot of money, but you know what? The rest of Russia is pretty good. And we're going to prove it. We're going to go out there and show you that. But I mean, again, just to put things in, I use analogies a lot. I wanted to be a firefighter, and I was a firefighter here, but I wanted to be the best firefighter. If I'm going to do something, I just want to be the best possible. And so it wasn't just being able to meet the standard of a volunteer firefighter. I wanted to meet the standard of a professional firefighter. And one of the things that you had to do is you had to go through a course that taught you about building codes and construction standards. Now, a firefighter, I know, walking in, I look at a building type. I can give you, I look at its age. I can tell you whether it has certain kind of constructions conducive to the spread of fire, et cetera, what burns faster. I could do all that, but it's superficial. It's relatively superficial. But then you get into the building codes, construction types, and all this kind of stuff that goes down, because professional firefighters are also code enforcers. They go around and they do code enforcement, they have the ability to do code enforcement. And I took that. That's a level of understanding that, I mean, I had to take 3 damn courses that lasted weeks and take tests that had nothing to do with firefighting. But when I left that, I technically could have gone and been a code enforcer. That's my knowledge of building construction. That's a level of knowledge that gets in there. The reason why I bring this up is you're raising issues about mortgages and housing industry and all that. Man, that is a topic that is very specific and requires a lot of in-depth knowledge about financial services, about communities, about housing construction, infrastructure, taxation, the whole thing. So what I'm trying to get at is tell people that when I go to Russia and I talk about housing, I'm sort of the superficial volunteer. I got a little bit of knowledge, but I'm not the guy that took the lengthy courses. I've heard, I know people in Russia who have built new homes, and they're doing very well. They go to the bank, they get the loan, they negotiate, the mortgage, and then they build the home. I know that I know people who have bought apartments. I also know people that have in Moscow who have old apartment buildings that are being removed or eliminated to be replaced by new apartment buildings, and they're being replaced at the state's expense. Let me refocus this because I went out of focus there. at the state's expense. So, when someone says, "Are you familiar with the Russian housing market?" Yes, I am. I'm superficially familiar with the Russian housing market. I've read things that say that that there are predatory loans in Russia, just like everybody else. I've read where people can't make their mortgages. I can't comment on that in a meaningful fashion, but I bring that up to say that there's reason to believe that the Russian housing market's just like every other housing market in the world, that there is good and there's bad and there's problems and there's issues, etc. What I would say is that Russia comes from a tradition of socialism, where housing is a right. In fact, I do believe that the Constitution of Russia is written in a way that guarantees the right of housing, so that the state will provide you with a house if you can't afford one. But if you want to, that apartment probably isn't going to be the 4-bedroom apartment at the penthouse of some Manhattan skyscraper. It's probably going to be something that allows you to live, but not luxuriously. If you want to upgrade, that's where you have to go out and pay for it yourself or secure the loan. And if you secure the loan, I imagine that you need to do so in a way that enables you to repay the loan responsibly. So my understanding is there are some defaults in the Russian housing market, that there were some predatory loan out there. Yeah, there it is, Constitution. So you can't be deprived of a home, but you can default on a mortgage, and then lose the home that you bought. So but I would just say that Russia is as complex a society as the West is, meaning that there's when I try to tell people that the Russians are the same as us, they are the same as us. They speak a different language, they have different cultural appreciations, but they wake up every day, they put their pants on one leg at a time, and they have to get a job, they have to earn an income, they have to buy food, they have to provide for a family, they have to provide for a home. If they want to upgrade, how students, when they leave college here, they go off and they get an apartment. Sometimes they have to share the apartment with a roommate to afford the rent. But they're not homeowners because they're not in a position. But as they work, they get promotions. As they get promotions, they get more money, they get disposable income, and they start looking at, hey, can I go buy an apartment? So they buy it as a starter apartment, and then after a couple of years, they sell that and they take the not the profit, the equity, and they go buy a starter house, and then they get married, and then they have kids, and they need to upgrade their house, and they upgrade again until at the end there they've got their 4-bedroom house in suburbia, and then all their kids go away and it's too big of a house, so they downgrade and they sell that house and they go buy a ranch until they get too old to walk around the single-story ranch, and they go back into the apartment, and then from the apartment they go to the old folks home, and from the old folks home they go into the ground. So it's the circle of life, just like everybody everywhere else.
Scott, I have another question for you here. We heard the Americans using this word called overcapacity. I'm not sure if you've heard that term in the last few days regarding China.
Well, basically, again, I'm not an economist. I know that Janet Yellen used that term. Basically, that China has too much influence on the market. They've become too powerful. Their control of the global supply chain is too great, and it makes it impossible. So what the United States, impossible for the United States to compete. So what the United States is trying to do is use monopoly laws in America and apply that to China, saying that you become a global monopoly and we can't allow that to happen. The difference is in America, the federal government has the ability to move in and impose its will because it's backed by the rule of law. The United States has no authority over China right now. I guess we can go to the World Trade Organization, but we've made WTO meaningless because of our meaningless attacks against China. And when China went to the WTO to challenge us, and the ruling was not in our favor, we disregarded it, or we tried to stack the deck. We tried to fire certain WTO judges and put other ones in, and so we've been playing this stupid game. But yeah, I think that's what you're talking about, when we
Yeah.
speak of overcapacity. Yeah.
And one of the reasons why I brought it up is there's an event that, there's talk about bringing you to China, and there's an event that I definitely want to bring you to see. I recently visited a city called Guangzhou. It has about population of about 20 million people. It's near Hong Kong and Shenzhen. And it has what it's called the Canton Fair every year. And this is pretty much what I would say the global supply chain for the world. And at this event, we saw everything. But one interesting thing that I noticed about this year's event that was much different from the other events, and just to give you an idea of the size of this event, it's about 70,000 booths. It's over a period of about a month and a half to 2 months. Almost 500,000 people visited on any given day as the show goes on, whether it's computer, electronics, or whatever. But the staggering thing about it this year is one of the largest customer bases was Russia. And my wife speaks Russian, and she kept saying to me, "This is incredible. There's Russians everywhere." They're everywhere. And it's amazing how fast, and I know there's always been that good relationship with Russia and China, but this is a major event. And I think a lot of people miss that, how much trade goes on. This is the mother of all trade events, the Canton Fair. And there's a video on my channel. I just put it up there a couple of days ago. And the amount of people that are watching that video and commenting saying, "What? Is that really possible? These prices is and it's not just Chinese selling knickknacks for the house. I mean, we are seeing new energy vehicles. We are seeing massive infrastructure items, whether it's construction equipment, home hardware equipment, things for the house. But it's amazing that I guess the word capacity that is at these shows. And this is an event that I think everybody needs to see. And for sure, this is an event that I want to bring you to when you come to visit China. Can we just chat about Russia again here? Are you going to announce a schedule where you're going, or is that kind of hush hush for the moment?
Let's put it this way.
Sorry.
I'm on several death lists with the Ukrainians who are actively trying to kill me. And I'm not going to make it easy for them. And unfortunately, the Ukrainians have shown that they have the ability to kill people in Russia, in Moscow, St. Petersburg, Nizhny Novgorod. They've arrested Ukrainians in Novosibirsk and elsewhere. So the last thing I'm going to do is make it easy for them by saying, this is the schedule and such. The other thing is you have to understand, I imagine that if we announced it in advance and played it up, that, I could fill a venue with a couple thousand people when I speak. And that's sort of an ego boost. It's nice to walk in and say, wow, all these people, it's like Sally Fields, they love me. But when you have a threat like the Ukrainians, you just put all those people at risk. And I'm never going to do that. So we will manage this the way we always manage it, which is the event will be announced locally at the last possible minute, and then it will occur. And we're not going to project where we go from there until literally the last possible minute. We reduce the physical crowd, but the way we're going to do this is, we're going to be doing podcasts from each location, and the URL of the podcast. I mean, people will know that something's happening on this day. They just won't know where it's happening from, and then when they tune in, they get to find out where we are and what we're doing, and that's the way we're going to approach this, because unfortunately we live in crazy times, and we don't want to. I mean, we can literally get scared and say no, but then what good are we? Or we could be cavalier and say yes, let's do this, but what good are we then? I mean, again, I wouldn't be able to live with myself if, because of my ego, I allowed something to happen that brought harm to other people. That just, I can't be held accountable for, what Ukrainians do, but I can't be held accountable for being irresponsible in the face of the knowledge that they're trying to do something. So we have to strike a balance. Fortunately, I have a very good host, Alexander Zarianov, and he is very capable, and I have the highest confidence that he will make sure that this tour is pulled off in a way that maximizes its potential without and minimizes the threat to anybody.
Another question I want to ask you, and thank you for answering that. I appreciate that. I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I was just generally curious. Does your schedule allow you time after that to maybe swing over to China, or are we going to have to do that in another visit? Because I would love to.
I think China's going to have to be a standalone visit.
Okay.
And probably one that we need to. I mean, to be honest, it's probably one that we would have to project into the next year in terms of getting the proper preparations done and things of that nature. The only reason why I say this is that this year is the year of Russia, and I'm committed to the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum. I'm committed to this trip. I'm committed to the Moscow International Security Conference, and I'm committed to the BRICS Forum in Kazan, which is in October. And then when that finishes, it doesn't mean that I won't be going back to Russia, but I don't know if I'll be involved with this level of intensity. And at that point in time, we might be able to shift gears. And because if I'm going to do China, or if China's going to do me, or we're going to do each other, I don't want it to be, I want it to be a good date. I want to go out on a good date. I want to have a good experience with China. I want it to be as well prepared as the things I'm doing in Russia. I want it to have an impact. I don't want it just to be simple tourism, although, good God, I would love to be a tourist in China, but I also want it to be meaningful for me and for the people I meet and for the people whom we're going to interact with online, etc. So I just think, for instance, this Canton fair event, it's an annual event?
Biannual, actually, twice a year.
When's the next one?
Probably another 5 months from now. Five months. But here's the thing: is now you're starting to increase your China social media here. your channels are getting bigger here. So, I mean, in the next few months here, they're going to be saying, get this guy to China. And I want to be one of the first guys to get you here for sure, and set it up the way you want to set it up and do the things that you want to do. So, I mean,
I would just say this though. I want to do this more than you can possibly know.
Okay.
But I also want to stay married. And my wife has been very, very generous in allowing me to do what I'm doing this year. But last year I traveled for Thanksgiving, I traveled for Christmas, I traveled for New Year's, and this year I'm going to be home for that. So that pretty much takes October. I'm going to be in Russia doing Kazan. November and December I'm home. January I'm probably home. So I don't think we could actually talk about me physically going to China until early next year at the earliest. But that's okay, because if we put a marker on the map, and say that's what we're gunning for, then we can make it happen.
Just so I understand, I mean, what kind of events do you do in Russia? I mean, is it an announcement that people come? You do a speech. How does it kind of work? Is that okay if you can explain that, your shows?
Sure. I mean, we do. Again, the original concept was that we were going to advertise it extensively at each place I went, and then book a hall that could hold 5,000, 10,000 people. And the idea would be for me to do a moderated discussion and then take questions from the audience. Now, taking questions from a 5 to 10,000 strong audience is always a frustrating thing because people like to ask questions, and I can't be there all day, and neither can the audience. So what we did, because of the reality, is that we went to smaller venues, and we had 200, 300, maybe 500 people at the max show up. It's a more intimate environment. I moderated discussion, asked questions, and then and it was filmed, and so it could be broadcast. But then take questions from the audience, and then because I had had a book published, and I just think this would be a great idea. I mean, I'm not a Chinese publisher, and I don't know if any books I write would ever have any resonance in China. But my Disarmament at the Time of Perestroika book, which is not just about Russian history, but it's about the process of breaking down walls of promoting peace and stuff, was translated into Russian. And so each venue I went to, and early on, was related, was a book tour, and the book was the hook, but it was also a tour about promoting, American-Russian friendship and sort of a broader discussion. If there would be a way that we could do something that had that kind of hook in China too, it might be useful to serve as a starting point for the discussions and to move on. But we did that. A lot of media, a whole bunch of media. I mean, to be honest, I loved I like meeting people. I really do like meeting people, and that's why I like the smaller venues, because you feel like you're meeting real people. And it's fun, meaning I can get tired, but at the end I walk away and I go, that was sort of empowering to meet people. Then the media and I love meeting the media people, but man, I would walk off at the end of the day sometimes, coming out of a studio at 10 at night. I felt like I went 15 rounds with Muhammad Ali. I was just like, oh, and I literally, Alex had to take me and drag me and pour me into my hotel. And then first thing is, we're up in the morning, started all over again. And that's okay if you do it for 3 days in a row, 4 days max. I did it for 26 days in a row.
That's
and then we're going to
unbelievable.
45 days in a row. But we had a multitude of events. I spoke at universities. I spoke at libraries. I spoke to. One of the cool things is I spoke to at the Pushkin, the Writers Union. I spoke at bookstores. I spoke, where the bottom line is, if there's a viable venue, I'll speak at it. I mean, that's the whole thing. I'm not limited to some. It's limited only by imagination and the will of people to participate. So, I could speak at a fish market. I could speak, on a sampan going down the Yellow River.
Well, maybe we'll do a couple of these, and you can bring the whole family over. Why not, huh?
Well, I mean, I'm not against that. I am cognizant. There's the word of costs, and people don't worry, we got it. Well, I do worry when you get it, because A, it's expensive, and B, I just want to make sure that there's no misunderstanding of
got it.
Yeah, we got you over here, your family. Now you have to do X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, I don't have to do anything, except I want to come over here and be friends, and I want to have good discussions. But the moment someone tells me that I'm their puppet and that I have to do something, that's when the strings get cut immediately, and I'm out of. I have to honestly say, in Russia, no one's ever tried to do it, and I don't think anybody in China would try to do that either.
Come on, never.
Right, but my point is, I always have to be cognizant of perceptions too, how people perceive what's going on. But look, I'll tell you this: when I mentioned the possibility of going to China to my wife and my daughters, all three of them, we're there. You're bringing us, right? You're bringing me. You're bringing me. And I'm like, I don't know. I can't. My wife's like, no, Scott, you're bringing me. I said, okay.
Oh, well, Scott, I know you got a busy schedule. I don't know how much time you got left. Carl's popped in. If you have to go, I get it. If you want to stay for another 5-10 minutes and talk
I
with
can stay
Carl,
for another 5 or 10 minutes, but then I got to run because
okay,
phone's
I'm
ringing.
letting you. I'm letting you boys have the screen here. Carl, you can tell us what happened, and I'm leaving. I'll be back in a few minutes. Scott and Carl, it's your show.
I just rushed from the airport to listen to Scott because I just landed in Hong Kong and I rushed from the airport to my hotel so I can join in this conversation. I was that was great. That whatever the last few minutes I got that you're thinking about going to China, Scott. I would highly recommend it. Highly recommend it. And you have people like Alex who can hook you up. You know, Alex knows all the. At least in the city of Chongqing, my hometown, he has all the hookups. I'm actually in China right now.
Look, I am a historian by training and by passion. And I have superficial knowledge of Chinese history. I've learned it not by studying China, but by studying others who impacted with China. For instance, I've studied the Basmachi revolt in Central Asia. And as a result, I have, there's it's a city in the far west. Kashgar, that's it, Kashgar. And there's a Muslim population there. And a guy that I'm researching, I'm 40 years into a book that will probably never get published, but I'll research it till the day I die. But Haji Sami Kushibashi is an Ottoman intelligence officer, but he had connections with a guy from Kashgar, a businessman, and so I had to study how he went to Kashgar and study how the Russians had their consulate, how the British had their consulate, and the whole concept of consular conflict in China during this period of time, and how that
was the time of the Great Game when the British.
Yeah, absolutely. The very great game. And so I studied that. I've studied the Marines, of course, going to China, both during the Boxer Rebellion and then afterwards, and then, when you study the Korean War, you have to study, the Chinese intervention and the politics there. And then some superficial knowledge of the Great Leap Forward and things of that nature. Nixon goes to China. But, so I can speak like I sound like I know what I'm talking about with China. But when it comes down to
that's all you need, Scott.
I like to go. I like to go deeper. I like to, because in order to understand a nation, to understand people, and to understand the culture, you have to get really, really deep. So if I'm going to go to China, I'm going to have to do some homework first, because I don't want to make a fool out of myself when I get there.
It's okay, Scott, because China is all about history, and the Chinese people understand you're coming from a different culture, different background. Chinese people understand that even if you know a little bit, they will feel like you've done your homework. You appreciate their culture.
I just want them to know that I respect them, and that's it. That I don't. I don't ever want someone to say, "Oh, you're disrespectful because you didn't know X, Y, and Z."
Chinese people are not like that. You just could throw a couple Mandarin words at them, they will love you. You just say,
to show you how stupid I am, instead of throwing Mandarin, I'll throw Han, or I'll throw Cantonese at them. They'll be like, no.
It's fine. It's fine. Chinese people are just happy to know that other people are interested in their culture, in their history. And you already know more than, I would say, like 90% of the Americans. Your knowledge of China is already surpassed like the average. And like not many, like for example, the Marines in China, not many people even knew like there were like 50,000 Marines in China after World War II. They were deployed as part of the Operation Beleaguered. Not many people today in United States even aware of this history, or even like U.S. involvement, say in the Boxer Rebellion, and not to mention Kashgar. I mean, like that's for the specialists. That's for the expert level.
Well, that's the one where I fake you out. You see, I go, oh yeah, so Kashgar in 1911. You know the and they're like, holy cow, this guy knows everything. Nope, that's it. But no, but the whole thing is because if to go to China, and again, I don't know if we're not at the stage in America where it's different with China. I mean, again, I have to be careful with what I say. We're not as ignorant of China as we are of Russia. We still do business with China. But I would also say that we have a very racist approach towards China that doesn't exist with Russia. There's a racial element of white superiority and the white man's burden. And a lot of the resentment we have towards China is, how dare the Chinese do it better than we do it? You know, who are they to think they can stand toe to toe with the West? When a Chinese meets American, they have to be in an inferior role. And, you know, we don't like the idea of Chinese as equals, and God forbid the Chinese ever have a superior role to us. You know, our little racist minds can't handle it. So it's a different level of conversation that has to take place with China than with Russia. It's not as easy as just going over and, and saying, hey, how you doing? Who are you? What are you? With China, I think it has to be approached in a more delicate fashion because you're navigating very, very deep and troubled waters. With Russia, you're navigating rapids, but it's predictable. You're saying, there's the rock, there's the rapids. I'm going to shoot over here, get through that. With China, you're going, it looks sort of smooth, but it's deep, and there's an undertow, and there's a current and a cross current, and winds and can come in, storms can wreck you. China's a more complicated problem, I think, than Russia. So it has to be done, because I could actually do more harm than good going over to China and doing a superficial tour. Because in many ways, if you do a superficial tour, you feed the prejudice, if you know what I mean. You're feeding, misperception. It has to be an educational process, but it has to be done in a way that doesn't turn people off. Because, in America, no racist one. If I take a racist from the Deep South and I jump straight into interracial marriage, they'll be like, no, screw that. No, ain't never going to happen. We're not going to let that happen. Well, it does happen. It is happening. It's normal in America today, but we didn't go from A to Z. We had to work it through. And I think to go to China, and that's the reason why I want to do the code, because I think every place I visit, there has to be a reason to visit. There has to be an educational purpose for being there. I am going to go there, and I am going to be exposed to an aspect of Chinese culture and Chinese history that is pertinent to defining what China is today. And you spoon feed the American audience, and then you go to the next one. And by the time the tour is done, the American audience has just ate a meal, and they're going, that's a delicious meal. China's a delicious place. I think that kind of approach would be a better approach.
Oh, I have a different proposition actually for Scott, because it will be going to China just to experience China for yourself, and then let the American audience experience that with you, through you. Because I think there's most Americans, their understanding of China is only coming from the mainstream media, which is through a very distorted lens. So to actually see China from first-person perspective and experience it in that environment, I think it's quite eye-opening for many people.
Right, but that's the approach I would take going to China. Is for me personally, I wouldn't want to just come and show up in a beautiful city and call up the local tourist guide, and they take me in and they show, and over here is Ming Chinese, the ding ding, and over here's this, that, and the other thing, and then you leave going, okay, I took some nice pictures, but I still don't know what I saw. If I go, I want to actually meet, somebody who says, this city was founded here by these people who came in. This is the place where this is what happened. This is that. and then to talk to the civic leaders, to talk, if it's a place, because China is also a very diverse nation, to sit down in some of these cities and say, hey, how do Muslims and non-Muslims live together here? What do you do about the cultural differences? And to be educated in this way, to meet people. And again, it's me learning, but by me learning, anybody watching can learn too. I think that would be an extremely valuable process.
I agree with that point, Scott, but there's something else that I want to tell you about my experience when I got here. I came to this country 4 years ago in the media department, and I quickly learned that, wait a minute, I'm having an impact here. We have skills here that, we always talk about China as being a developing country, right? We are, and a lot of people tie that to maybe developing as infrastructure. But no, it's actually when you come here, Scott, people are, first of all, they're going to say, wait a minute, I can learn a lot from this guy. This guy has this experience. He's gone here. I mean, trust me, give yourself a hell of a lot more credit, because these people, they're going to listen to every word that you say. Doesn't have to be, of course, I know you want to come and learn. We've expressed that. You've expressed that many times. And that's amazing and awesome. It's going to be a bunch of information to take in. But also, people want to hear your opinion, maybe what you think, what you've seen for the first time, how you experience it. How can we learn from Scott Ritter, who is on our soil here? How can we understand our country to improve it better, to break down those barriers? This is the kind of stuff that's exciting.
No, I don't disagree with that. But again, focusing. This is why, again, I'll just drop the hint out there one more time. I really think it's important for China to publish Disarmament in the Time of Perestroika, and that we use that as a talk, and to organize the trip so that we go to, for instance, where Lop Nor, if we can get near Lop Nor and talk about nuclear testing, if we can go to the places where the Chinese ballistic missiles are built, not to give me a tour of the factory. I understand there's sensitivity there, but the reason why I want to bring this up is the United States and China at some point in time are going to have to go down the path of arms control. It's just a reality. At some point in time, they're going to have to do that. And so for me to talk about how the United States and the Soviet Union did it, and then for Chinese people to say, yeah, but wasn't that a little too intrusive or didn't work, to begin a discussion, a dialogue about arms control and about disarmament and about how, that was good or how that was bad. Because, there's a lot of arguments. The Russians make a whole bunch of arguments how the United States abused arms control and used it to empower themselves and all that. And the Chinese would be stupid, excuse my language, to sit there and go, we're just going to accept the old model. No, America will use it and abuse it. But to have this kind of realistic dialogue and conversation to serve as a starting point, because then, trust me, I've done it in Russia. Once you start getting into, well, how can we learn to trust you? You guys have cheated before. How do we begin? Now we get into, I tell the stories about how when I was in Russia, how I learned to love them, stop viewing them as the enemy, view them as friends, and talk about the importance of respecting cultures, respecting that people are people, and from that comes the broader discussions. And it actually, by starting out with the disarmament concept and all that, it brings a focus and a discipline to what comes next. And it worked very well in Russia. And because I don't have a direct arms control thing, we'd have to use disarmament at the time of Perestroika as an analogy of what an American-Chinese arms control experience could look like, and how you would want an American-Chinese arms control experience to look like based upon this particular history.
Carl and Scott, I just want to say this before I forget it. We had a holiday here in China called Golden Week. And I was reading some statistics today. 2 of the most popular places in this city, you won't believe what they were on the holidays. 1 was the library, and number 2 was the museum. Into the millions that people visited here. They love reading books. I mean, getting your book translated into Mandarin could be explosive, man. I mean, it could be massive. So I don't know. That's something to think about. Go ahead, Carl. Sorry.
Oh yeah. I mean that's actually a great idea. I mean, like Chinese are ferocious readers. You know, I would definitely try to get some Chinese publisher get your book translated. But
Well, but just so you know, I apologize for, Russian publishers were hesitant to publish a book even though it was about Russia. But the moment we said, but I'll come to Russia and I'll use that book as part of as the basis of a tour, the biggest publisher in Russia said, okay, we're in. So it's not just getting them to publish the book, but if we link it to a tour.
Yeah, I'm ready.
That makes it for the publisher. First of all, the publisher got to sit there and say, well, can we market this thing? Well, it's just marketed. You're bringing the damn author to China, which should already be sort of a interesting process. It's part of a bigger thing. And I think you find a mainstream Chinese publisher go, if you bring him, it's like a Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come.
Carl, you're coming too. Carl, you're coming too, Carl.
I am. I'm already on Chinese territory. I'm in Hong Kong right now.
Yeah, but I mean, when Scott gets here,
oh, for sure,
you're there too.
I'll give Scott the tour. I'll be the guy who telling Scott this place was built in 1456. But like what you said about the tour and the book. Chinese people read everything. They read Mearsheimer. They will love your book. They love Mearsheimer because Mearsheimer often traveled to China and give talks. Like even though Mearsheimer is a big China hawk, but the people in China, they love to listen to him because they feel Mearsheimer at least is honest. He's honest when he's talking about U.S. intentions, unlike others who always wrap up U.S. foreign policy in like human rights talks and like spread democracy, all that. But like at least Mearsheimer doesn't make bullshit. He just says, okay, U.S. is here to preserve its hegemony, and China understand. Most Chinese people understand that realistic approach to diplomacy. So I think they would love your book. I mean, no doubt.
Absolutely.
And then, of course, Alex.
Yeah.
We won't say it here, but then we have the home run.
Oh God, don't get me going on this, man. Don't get me. Oh, you know what? I have actually. And
disarmament would be perfect for that one.
So. I'll tell it off the air, Carl. I can't. It's mind blowing. It's absolutely mind blowing.
All right. Unfortunately, I got to run. I mean,
Thank you for.
Got people calling me.
We'll see you next week, Scott. Okay. Take care, man.
Okay. Alex, actually, we have to communicate on that. My wife has a medical appointment on Monday, so we've got. I don't know if you can move the time of your interview at all.
Yes, no problem.
Okay, I'll get in touch with you and we'll work on that. Okay. Thanks,
Great
Carl.
To see you.
Good
Take care,
Alex.
Bye.
Bye.
Good to see you again, Scott.
Carl's in the house. Carl, what are you on your mobile or what are you on?
I'm on my phone because I just realized I brought a defective adapter for my power adapter for my laptop. Yeah, my laptop is out of commission. So I hope my audio is still okay.
Audio is good. I'm going to play something on the show here. I don't know if you watched my last video, but I got to tell you, this is probably one of the most exciting weeks I've had in China. Okay. And
you went out on the May Day weekend?
No. I
saw all the footages of Chongqing tourist spot during the May Day weekend. It's like
don't worry about that.
It's like millions.
I gotta show you this video because you're in Hong Kong right now. This is in Guangzhou. This event. My wife was saying the whole time, why didn't Carl join us? Okay. You guys have a look at this. I'm going to play about 3 or 4 minutes of this video. And this will really explain to the audience over capacity. Okay. the lovely word of overcapacity. All right, here we go. Okay, you guys, I'm queuing it up. Let's see. Are we ready? Shoot, you guys okay if I leave the screen like that and Carl and I can kind of look, just watch it together? If you guys are cool with that. All right, let's let it rip. Here we go.
Welcome to one of the biggest consumer electronic fairs in the world. This is the Canton Convention Center behind me. Millions of products are being sold today.
160 phone.
No, 160.
Yeah, 160.
But the quality is, look at this quality.
Cat toilet.
Cat toilet, okay, cool. Protein shake vending machine. Wow. Hey everyone, it's Alex here in Guangzhou at the Canton Fair. It's been going on since 1957. It's the mother of all trade exhibitions. It actually makes the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas look like a holding booth. You cannot miss this. What you see here is going to be under your Christmas tree coming December. Let's go to the show. I'm going to take you on a journey. We're going to show you this place from up above. You're going to see everything from new energy vehicles to consumer electronics. You name it, solars, everything is in these pavilions, whether it's for your car, whether it's for your home, and even apparel, home hardware. Oh, this place is huge. I need my phone for this because this is important. I have to tell you, the total number of booths behind me here, ready for it? 74,000, okay? 72,000 of them are export exhibitions and 1,557 are import exhibitions. Doris, what is this?
This is a boxing machine. This is a commercial use for the game center or indoor game zone or game park.
How much does something like this cost?
For this machine, the price is 2,951 piece. Yeah,
What's special about it?
this is a new outlook. If players win high scores, he will got cola as a reward.
Oh, like cola or beer or whatever.
Yes,
right?
yes,
I get
yes,
it.
yes,
Okay,
yes.
good.
Also have the air hockey table. This air hockey table is also very popular in the game center. And
Wow.
this one is our new outlook. It is very beautiful with many LED lights. And the surface is curved, not like a
It's
plastic one.
curved. Yeah. I
Yeah,
see it,
curved
curved.
surface. Yes, yes.
I love
And
it.
the air wind is very strong.
I never win at these games.
Never try.
Are you going to show me a secret? There it is. Thank you so much for your time, Doris.
You're welcome.
Okay, Ben, tell us. I walked past this unique, really interesting, record player.
Yeah, this one is one of our most popular. We have Bluetooth, USB, and also the cassette. And as you can see, the vinyl record. Yeah, we designed it. We have our own design patent for this one.
Okay.
And this one is very popular in Spain now.
The MOQ.
Yeah, at the moment, this one is 500 units.
Fantastic looking unit.
This one is for 45 USD per unit.
Okay.
FOB Shenzhen.
Okay.
Yeah, you can see this one is bigger, and we have more function on this one.
Okay.
Yes.
And that
This
can
one
play
have-
USB as well, right?
Yes, USB, Bluetooth, FM, cassette, CD player, and
Wow.
record player.
And it's one of my favorite items I've seen here at the Canton Fair so far. Now, this is a lot to take in. 29,000.
Well, anyway, Carl, I wanted to bring that up to you and see what you think of that place. I mean, it is over capacity.
Is this still going on or is it over already?
Oh no, it's still going on. I mean, like you've heard the key word with the Americans using China as saying it's over capacity, right? So no,
That's
this
that's just another way of them saying we can't compete with China. You know, like we can't compete with that.
And I was talking to Scott. I mean, most of the people, the foreigners there were Russian, building up their new supply chain. And this is interesting. I mean, China welcomes everyone. You want to come do business here? Come do business here. Now, the cost to go into that event, zero. It doesn't cost you
Wow.
anything to go in there as a buyer. absolutely nothing. Now, of course, for sellers, I mean, you see the size of that place there. I mean, there was everything there. Everything you can imagine was there. And that, I think, it brought back to me when I was at my first Canton Fair in Guangzhou. I think it was in the year 2000, just after the millennium, 2000, 2001, over 20 years ago. And I said to my wife, this is what got me excited about China. I went to that event and said, wow, like, I mean, this is when you go to an event like that, you start to really understand what's going on in this country. It's very clear what's going on in this country. There's people there that are entrepreneurs, or people there are the first time trying to sell something. There's sales teams. I mean, if people think that Chinese don't know how to sell, I mean, they do. But yeah, okay, let's get on to something that we named this show. China is next. We're starting to see a lot of this, beatings of the drums here, especially with the collective West. And, Blinken didn't even leave the soil before he took shots at China. I mean, this doesn't seem to be resolving itself, Carl.
Well, I think, the Russian sanction, that was just a warm-up. That was a trial run for, what they had planned for China. Because if you think about it, we had this whole Russia gate. Now Blinken is trying to blame China for election interference, in the U.S. politics. It's almost like, but it's going to be 10 times worse. Because at least, like Scott said, with Russia, there's less of that kind of racial element. Whereas in China, that racial element is always there. So it's when U.S. going to shift from hating on Russia to hate on China, it's going to be 10 times worse. And I think the Russian sanction is just the U.S. weaponizing financial sanction didn't start with Russia. They started with North Korea. The first time they weaponized sanction, it was against a Chinese bank in Macau that was accused to helping funneling funds to North Korea, and then they use the same mechanism to apply Russian sanctions. So this is how U.S. is escalating. Like going from first North Korea, then Iran, then Russia, and then finally the big enchilada, the big prize is when they already talk about threatening sanction on Chinese banks. I mean, that's going to be huge.
I mean, how do we think that's going to disrupt the financial system here in China? I mean, you start messing with the banks here, and then China can easily retaliate by selling T-bills, just slamming them into the market. I mean, it's going to be a shit show if this happens.
Because China doesn't actually want instability. That's why I don't think China will actually start dumping T-bills, because China still holds $800 billion worth of U.S. Treasury. If China start dumping, China will actually lose a lot of money. So I think what China is trying to do is trying to slowly unwind while pushing on the de-dollarization train, because if the Russia sanction really got the de-dollarization snowball rolling, but when they sanction Chinese banks, oh man, that train will really take off. I mean, right now, why would anybody use dollar? What is dollar? Dollar is like trust, right? You trust that $20 legal tender is going to entitle you to buy $20 worth of goods and services elsewhere. But United States right now is saying, oh, wait a minute. You can't use that $20 to buy Qualcomm chips. No, you can't use that $20. You can't use the dollars to buy NVIDIA AI chips. You can't use it to buy American farmland. You can't use it to buy American company. The only venue we allow you to invest is into more treasury bills. And this is why China branched out to the Belt and Road in the first place, to invest, to offload some of these dollars. But then U.S. hates the Belt and Road project, and so what eventually the Chinese leader is going to ask, so what are our options here? Well, I mean, the option is move off the dollar, and
well, that's one, Carl. But I think maybe the other option is, can you imagine? You just imagine if the Chinese said, "Wait a minute, you know all those American companies that are right here, right outside this window, right across the street? There's so many American brands up and down the streets of good old Chongqing, not even talking about Beijing and Shenzhen or Shanghai. But you start messing with this country and you start using, the banking system, the lights could quickly go out in the Starbucks. The lights could quickly go out in, a massive amount of Fortune 500 companies. I mean, I
don't think China will do that approach, actually, because
I get it, but if you're going to start threatening the banks,
China actually hurt itself, right? Because Starbucks, McDonald's, KFC, they employ a lot of Chinese people in China. If China goes after, say, iPhone, right? iPhone, they still have a lot of factories in China making iPhones.
Sure.
China doesn't want to affect its citizens, so China will go after. Will find some other ways. If they want to retaliate, it's going to be other ways. And I think what China could really work on is put more teeth into the BRICS currency. Because right now, I mean, people use U.S. dollar because it's convenient. You can use it everywhere. It's accepted everywhere. But now U.S. government said, no, it's not. It's not accepted everywhere. Not if you're China, Iran, Russia, North Korea, or anybody who we don't like. And then, why? What's the point? Why do China really need to use dollar to purchase oil from Middle East? I mean, China can just, right, because China already produce everything. China can just use the Chinese currency, use yuan. But China don't necessarily want yuan to be the replacement world reserve currency for dollar, because to have a world reserve currency means you have to accept a permanent trade deficit, like the United States, right? I don't think China is also ready for that. So I think China will likely push for a basket of currencies. That's where BRICS currency comes. Like maybe weighted by different commodities. I think that's where it's going. But in any case, that means less role for the dollar as the world reserve currency, and that's going to have huge impact back in the U.S. I mean, Americans today are able to enjoy the living standards they have right now, in large part is owed to the status of U.S. dollar as the world reserve currency. And people are going to have to take a haircut to their living standards.
Yeah, that's an interesting comment. I also heard it from Peter Schiff when we had him on the program last year, where he said that, the average American has to adjust its standard of living here in the next few years. I was recently looking at, the real estate property. Of course, what it's like in the United States here, and the purchasing power of the average person. But I mean, they've been decimated here. We didn't see a reduction of the lending rate, or the we call it prime lending rate in Canada. The Fed is holding for longer. I mean, this is more pain when you've seen mortgage payments for people that have. Give you an example. A friend of mine, his daughter's mortgage payment, we'll call it on a medium-sized home in Vancouver, I think it was about around 850 to 900,000 Canadian. That sounds like a lot. I mean, it is a lot, but still, compared to the U.S., I think it's about 600,000 American. I haven't checked the rates lately, but her mortgage went from 36 to 74 within a year and a half. And we talk about this 30-year term rate, but it's almost impossible. A bank pretty much won't let you, sign in for that long. So it's getting very complicated. And this is where I've seen that, okay, you might be right that China would say, all right, we're not going to hit the T-bills. We're not going to hurt the companies inside China. But in fact, you might be right here, Carl. In fact, you are right. I think they will say, you know what? Let's expand the supply chain outside the borders of China. Let's start going to these countries that have been, decimated by the Americans with their economies and say, okay, you know what? We'll open up a couple of local banks. For example, Cape Verde, or I don't know, some African country that Burkina Faso or something like that, where the Chinese will roll in there and they'll say, okay, let's open up traditional banking. Let's get that branch manager in there. Let's start loaning micro loans to some of these nations that need support and build it brick by brick. I mean, this is what China's good at. And I think that they might be able to combat, any pressure. I mean, 280 billion annually trade with Russia is no chump change, if you ask me.
Yeah, I mean, also, currently, China maintained exchange control largely because in the past, it learns from the Asian financial crisis back in the 1990s when the hot money comes in and then leaves, and then that caused a lot of economy to go bankrupt. But China now is at a point where it's strong enough. It's already the manufacturing center of the world. And China, I think it's in the process of rolling out to kind of spread around its financial muscles. I mean, because today Chinese tourists, they're able to use mobile pay. The mobile payment for WeChat and Alipay is getting more accepted overseas, but still there's needs to be wider adoption. Like today, a Chinese tourist wanted to purchase like necklace from my wife, but she wants to use WeChat payment, but my wife doesn't have, she couldn't take WeChat payment. So I have to step in, because I have a WeChat that's linked to a Chinese bank account.
Yeah, they did. They did change that though, Carl. I don't know if you're aware of that. About a month and a half ago, they have changed the payment system now, where you don't need a Chinese bank or a Chinese bank card to link it anymore. You can just use any foreign card now. It just changed about 30 days ago. Now, I haven't tried it because I haven't had to, but I do agree with you. There still is that disconnection here. And maybe WeChat, just maybe they will. WeChat will get more bold and say, and I'll tell you right now, I'll tell you something. It's an interesting point that we bring up payments, payment solutions. If you are a Chinese person and let's say you travel to Thailand for the weekend, right? Now, most Chinese aren't used to bringing a wallet. Okay. I have not seen wallets I've seen wallets for sale as a thing that you might take out of the country, but I've never actually seen a Chinese person carry a wallet. They carry their phone. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure who we got backstage here. Wait a minute. I think we got somebody in our. Just hang on a sec. No, it's okay. So, the interesting thing about it is that the average person in China doesn't have a wallet, so they use WeChat Pay. And I was asking my friend, I said, what if, because he went to Thailand for the weekend, Chinese guy went to Thailand, and he says, oh man, it was weird using currency, cash. I got off the plane, I went to the currency conversion. The currency conversion was terrible. And he said there was one place in Bangkok that he saw a WeChat logo, payment logo, and he says, "I just had to go there just to use my WeChat code and scan." I mean, wake up Thailand, wake up other nations. You want 1.5 billion people to spend money in your country? I don't know if you can do it or how you do it, or if you come to China. If I was a Thai person and I had a business in Bangkok, I would get on an airplane here. I would touch down in China and say, okay, I have a lot of Chinese coming. Get me into a merchant bank account here with a business, where you are too. Put up that WeChat code. Look out, because it's instant. If a Chinese person has this, everybody, this is their wallet. This is their bank account. This is their life. It's not just about a mobile phone. This is the cash machine. I've never seen anybody spend money here in years. So, yeah, here's an interesting question.
I had experienced a culture shock traveling to Hong Kong in 2019 because I already spent 6 months traveling in mainland China, just carrying my phone, pay everywhere. And when I went to Hong Kong in 2019, I was like, what? I have to use coins to purchase subway tickets, like a physical coin. So I have to go walk around, find an exchange desk to get to convert my money into Hong Kong dollars and get coins so I can put in the coin machines. I mean, that was like a step into the 20th century.
Sorry, go ahead. Here's an interesting comment here. It says, what about privacy with digital wallets? What about what happened to the truckers in Canada? Their digital funds were frozen because the government decided their speech was wrong. Here's the interesting thing is, on these phones here, WeChat and your bank, you can actually hold funds outside of your bank in other wallets. For example, WeChat itself has its own wallet, or you can connect it to your bank. So some people, they don't want to, let's say they don't want to leave much money in the WeChat wallet. They'll have a direct link to the bank. It's so interesting because it allows you to connect it. I mean, WeChat's connected to everything.
Yeah, I mean, the thing
everything.
is, you can't never be fully independent.
True.
Like when it comes to money. I mean, like I just find out today that E-Trade disconnected my service. I had E-Trade for 24 years, and they just decided, you know what? We're gonna disconnect you from our service for no reason. I didn't even get a freaking phone message, text message notification. I found out because I was logging in and it says your service has been restricted, and I called them up. They say, oh, looks like they disconnected your service. I'm like, what? And this I can't. And they're like, I can't tell you why, because you have to call back during the normal business hours for U.S. East Coast time. I'm like, what? I mean, so yeah, I mean, you just have to, you just have to accept the fact that you can never be truly. I mean, yeah, unless you have gold or like you carry cash, sure. But I mean, it's just a price you pay for plugging into a modern society, right?
I mean, another thing that I think people don't really understand about China is everyone thinks that people can't complain. And if you go on the Chinese social media, people complain about everything. I mean, yes, they can say, oh, I'm pissed off with this or I'm angry with that. Why is it that, people just think that, oh, nothing can be said when you're there? I mean, you have friends here, Carl. I mean, let's.
I have an American friend who would like whisper to me like if he was talking shit about Xi Jinping, as if like there's like the room is bugged or something. I'm like, dude, why would Xi Jinping care about what you say? Like you're not that important, okay? I mean, you're just an average American dude. They don't really care. But and especially if the language is the English language, they'll care less.
This is interesting here. And I'm sorry, I keep interrupting you a little bit. I promised myself I wouldn't do that. I interrupted you once, I think, last week, and I got about 8 messages. Stop interrupting Carl. I mean, Carl and I don't get to chat much, but when we do, trust me, guys, in person, this guy talks over me a lot, okay? In a good way. But this here, it says the only people worried about government control over digital currency are the cash launderers. Imagine the amount that WeChat has eliminated in underground money laundering. Have you ever thought about that for a moment? How much, if you go to, and I'm going to say that this is pretty much a cashless society here in China. I would say 99.9% of the transactions here are done digital. And if you try to do something shady, I don't know. I don't think it's possible. I just don't think it's possible. You know, when you sign up people for WeChat, you have to be vetted. Here he is. Here he goes. Go, Carl. Go.
I'll give you a counter example of where WeChat, so for a time, I know a guy, a British Chinese guy who went to Syria. You know, he was young. You know, he went to join the Kurdish militia in Syria because he wanted to fight ISIS. And then, but at some point in time, he got disillusioned and he wanted to get out. But you know, he needed funds. But we can't, like, you can't run a FundMe. You can't run a FundMe or any kind of Western fundraiser for him because you know he's in a sensitive situation. You know, they will shut it off right away for, like, they will call it terrorist funding. You're funding terrorists. Not gonna happen. What I did, I organized a WeChat group. I, you know, got everybody who knew him, wanted to support him together. We got enough. We sent enough WeChat wallet for him to buy a ticket to get out of Iraqi Kurdistan, get back to London. You know, I'm still proud of myself for doing that, to get himself out of harm's way. I mean, like, but you can't do that with, like, GoFundMe or any kind of Western.
No, I mean, just ask Patrick Lancaster about that. He was one of the first guys on YouTube demonetized. Quickly after that, Facebook. Quickly after that, PayPal. Quickly after that, his own bank. And then finally, I flew down there to meet him, and he was just beside himself. This was probably 8 years ago when I flew down to meet Patrick in Transnistria. Imagine that, first meeting a buddy of mine in Transnistria for the weekend. And he was just telling me, look, right, left, everywhere, it's closed. And recently, he got some more news that some more of his American banks were just shuttered. Now, the WeChat thing is an interesting angle when you think about it.
I need to find out why E-Trade disconnected me from their service. I have to call tomorrow during U.S. business hours. Like, why the hell they just like me, being their customer for 24 years? You know, I've been their customer since 2000.
Maybe it's this overcapacity thing. Maybe they just got way too. Maybe they're just thinking Carl is overcapacity. Let's talk about you know, this the tensions rising here a little bit in China. I mean, I feel it with seeing the media, and I really didn't like that last visit from Blinken here. I mean, I knew he was going to take a shot before he got off the tarmac. And what an asshole. I mean, seriously, you know, he wasn't warmly welcomed. It wasn't impolite. He was welcomed here. And then they gave him a day or two. He looked like he was being cool. And then, you know, they started opening up the doors. And then even before the guy takes off, oh, well, we're going to deal with you guys. Like, what an asshole. I just don't get it.
I don't get it either. I mean, I didn't even understand what's the purpose of this trip. I mean, if, like, what the Chinese side wanted, And what Blinken wanted was totally different. They're like not even on the same wavelength. China just wanted reassurance that U.S. still adheres to the one China principle. U.S. will not support Taiwan independence. In a way, China did get Blinken to say that verbally. But
yeah, verbally saying it, but raising $8 billion, passing in the Congress is not saying that either. Yeah, this is a good one. It was a PR stunt. Yeah,
and but Blinken, he went there to lecture the Chinese about their Russia ties. I mean, that was a non-starter. China is not going to come to Russia to please the U.S. And it's not like the U.S. is not even offering China any incentive. It's like if you do as I say, then we will not sanction you. That is their incentive. That's bogus. China is not going to do that. What he said he went to China to do was non-starter from the get-go. It was not going to happen. And so yeah, I truly don't understand what Blinken was even trying to accomplish by going to China.
So Carl Zaw, for the audience, what brings you to where you are today? Are you traveling? Are you doing some business, or you can't talk about it?
Yeah, I can't talk about it. It's
okay.
maybe I'll tweet about it. But
oh Jesus, okay. Oh God, okay. Flight was good for you though, right? Was it on time? Everything was okay, or?
It's a straight 5-hour flight. But I was really anxious because I was like, okay, I'm cutting it really tight for the Scott Ritter interview, and then at the airport, I was texting you. I'm like, oh, I'm okay. Maybe I'll join you on the taxi, and then my wife said she was gonna enable my roaming. So I was like, okay, I can still talk to you on taxi. Then as soon as I left the airport, got into taxi, I realized my roaming wasn't activated, so I don't have data, so I couldn't talk to you. Then I was like, okay, let's just get to the hotel, and then at least I caught the tail end of it.
So I'm bringing up your Twitter feed here, or X, otherwise formerly known as Twitter. Let's have a look what's been going on with you on here. Let's have a look. This one here I wanted to bring up, and there was another one that I saw from you earlier. It was, you really attract some interesting people on your X account. It really is interesting. Let me just pull it up. Where did I find it?
I tweet out interesting content, man. I just tweet out whatever is that I find interesting.
Let me just have a look here. I'm going to ask you, while you're here today, what did you think about the banning of Al Jazeera in Israel? Did you hear about that news?
Yeah, I think I kind of expected that. I mean, Israel right now, it doesn't. I mean, it kind of doesn't really care about self-image. I felt, because right now the Israel, their official propaganda channel is literally just a catalog of their war crimes. So I don't think they even care about how they look to the outside world. I mean, Al Jazeera obviously got on their nerves, so they're just gonna bang it, and that's not gonna make them look better, because people will see this like, okay, well, yeah, this is Israel being Israel again.
Now, this strategic move by the Chinese to visit Hungary and Serbia.
Yeah. So
if you're gonna explain that to the average person, let's dissect that for a moment. What that really means.
So, well, first, Hungary is part of EU, right?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
And this is Hungary is China's entrance to EU. Like they're trying to build EV factories in EU. So then this is how the Chinese, because EU are talking about putting tariffs on imports of Chinese EVs, and the Chinese EV makers like, okay, we'll just come to Europe, we'll build factory in Hungary, and then we'll make it for Europe, and it's there's no trade barrier between the EU countries, so it should be fine, right? And Hungary is looking for investment, and Serbia it borders Hungary, so like Serbia doesn't have to deal with all the EU bureaucratic bullshit. So China can build a factory in Serbia, and it's just a short hop over to Hungary.
Short hop over.
And China, guess what? And China built the rail link between Serbia and Hungary. So the Chinese factories in Serbia can make components and then ship them over to Hungary, get assembled, and sell to EU. This, I think von der Leyen and these EU bureaucrats are probably going to look to plug into that hole. This is how the U.S. is viewing Chinese EV makers making cars in Mexico, for example. They think that's like China is exploiting a loophole to take advantage of us innocent Americans by making EVs in Mexico and then get them to sell to America, because Mexico and U.S. are in the free trade zone. So Biden already warned against the Chinese to use Mexico as a launching pad to enter U.S. They will probably pressure their people in Europe, like I'm talking about von der Leyen, I'm talking about Baerbock, to put pressure on Hungary and Serbia. But Hungary is like the black horse in EU, right? So yeah. I mean, I think they're gonna do what's best for Hungary, and what's best for Hungary is more investment. Whether if it's coming from China, so be it.
It's interesting. In the average person, there's a quote I put up there about BYD. I mean, BYD is a serious player here in China. Some of the cars that are coming out from this manufacturer are amazing. I think even Elon Musk has kind of said, look, Tesla's on the list, and then it's China. And the amount of infrastructure money that it is everywhere here in China. If you don't think electric cars are big business for China, it is big business. Now, I don't want people to get caught up in this. China doesn't view this necessarily in a way like we in the West view it, where we think, okay, I'm getting rid of the American muscle because I have to buy this battery-powered car, and well, because the lefts are telling me to buy this car. It's not like that. Let me give you a comparison. Go ahead, Carl.
For China,
go ahead.
It's a very simple equation. China had a terrible pollution problem, even like 10, even 9 or 8 years ago.
Yep.
So to cut down the pollution, the easiest way is to cut down the pollution from the vehicle traffic. And EV is one way to achieve that goal. And another goal China is achieving is they're trying to wane their dependence on hydrocarbon imports, because U.S. Navy keep on talking about how Strait of Malacca is going to be a choking point where they're going to choke off the Chinese energy supply coming from Middle East in time of war. So China, on one hand, China is building out the Belt and Road project, trying to branch out to build connection in other places, in like Pakistan to Russia to Central Asia. So not everything goes through Strait of Malacca, but at the same time, sustainable energy by building up solar, wind, hydro, and nuclear is going to help China to wean off the hydrocarbon imports. And then the EV transition is going to help on top of that, because then China will be more self-sufficient in its energy. This is a very strategic. This is a strategic goal for China, right? The EV is nothing about like Greta, or
Yeah,
or
and you know, I want to add to that. This is where a lot of people get very confused. That's not how they're selling these cars over here. Yes, of course, as you say, the environment, the skies here. I mean, the factories. I mean, it's when you're the warehouse of the world, when you're the manufacturer of the world. Yeah, that's going to happen. There's going to be pollution. And it's interesting when you have the West countries say, look at China. China's biggest polluter. Yeah, but you're the biggest buyer of the stuff that pollutes the skies. Okay, they have improved here. I live in Chongqing. Chongqing was a very, very big industrial city. Still is, okay? It is the motor city of China. And what people forget here is, I'll see comments here today. Somebody says, yeah, garbage, can't drive it in the winter, blah, blah, blah. Let me try to explain again about these cars. China's not telling you, okay, get ready your gas power car. They're not saying it all. They're saying it's a new energy vehicle. Now, what are new energy vehicles? Okay, not just cars. Every little municipality in the world has, let's say, garbage treatment, maybe pet control. Maybe they have gardeners that go up and down to water the flowers in the cities. You don't know how big that fleet is. Okay, it's not somebody's trying to say, God, get rid of your car, get into the battery power car. Okay, sure. There's going to be some strategies for that. But what China does is they'll go into a municipality, and some of these cities here are massive. Okay, this one here is 30-some million. How many, let's say, little cars could you imagine that street sweepers, garbage guys, I don't know, give me some other things, Carl, that people could use in the city?
Buses, like
buses,
like public transportation.
So
China made electric buses.
And then, so when I was at the Guangzhou Canton Fair, there's new energy buses. I got to tell you, if anybody's ever been to Thailand, where I used to live for a few years in Bangkok, look at those buses that just pump out the black smoke that make your eyes sting in that country. Okay, I remember driving a scooter in Bangkok. My eyes would itch, just stinging every day that I was there. You replace the fleet by a new energy vehicle. You do it to just about everything that municipality can use these cars for. Also, there are sections in this city now that have delivery service, unmanned delivery service with battery powered cars that there's no one there. I mean, but it works. I'll tell you even how more advanced it's getting.
I mean, China is designing solutions for China's problems. Like,
true.
Because China is, the EV adoption can be rolled out very quickly in China because China built out a lot of EV infrastructure, charging stations, battery swapping stations. But Chinese EV makers also understand those infrastructure are not there outside of China. So they're also focusing on building hybrid vehicles, right? Like that so people don't have that range anxiety. They have, but they're also building in places like Brazil, in places like hopefully Indonesia, they're also building out their own charging station infrastructure. So this way, go ahead.
Yeah, it's also, the charging station's one thing, but then China's gone on another level here with NIOs, and it's battery swapping. It's battery swapping technology where everyone say, well, what happens to all those service stations? Well, the service stations are still in business here. They sell gas, and you can swap your battery on your car in 3 minutes. Not like you got to pull over to the side of the road, plug your car in, wait a couple hours. Nope. It's battery swapping technology. You drive it in, and most of these gas stations have decided it's an extra revenue stream for them. They just buy it like it's a port. It looks like a portable car wash, actually, where door opens, car goes in, you hit the brakes, move it a little bit ahead, put it in park, go grab a coffee from the convenience store, come back, boom, you're at 95, 98% capacity, new battery. And also the batteries don't get used in the car over and over and over and over and over. It's just remarkable technology. This is something that we always bring up here on this show. I am still trying to figure this out. I've been in China for 4 years, and I'm wondering how I get on the scoring system here. People say, how's that social credit score working out for Chinese people? I'm just like, I've got documentation here. I'm really trying to figure out, like, Sonny, can you, but where do I apply for that? Like, do you get like bonus points, like air miles if you do well? Or I know it's funny, but I'm still trying to figure this out, Carl. What the hell is a social credit score?
There's no such thing. I mean, like, this is one of the.
I love this. Like, I can't get off this point.
This is
how's the social credit score working out for the Chinese people? But how do I get? Where is it? Is there like a database for it, or who came up with this?
This is one of those persistent urban myths. I mean, like, it never goes away because people keep on asking about. I mean, like, there's actually I think there's a 2018 article from either.
Let me see if I can pull.
Yeah. From either Diplomat or Foreign Policy. One of those, like, U.S. magazines, not known for pro-China, by the way. And the title is literally "Social Credit System is a Myth." but somehow that memo, people never got that memo, and the meme persisted.
I'm just. Oh, yeah. Well, I would put this up here, but I can't. The guy kind of swears in it. But David says, Chinese EV scooters are effing great. I've had the same one since 2018, and I've treated it like an off-road vehicle, and it still goes great. I have 2 EV scooters in the city. I drive them in. I'm about, I guess, 1.5 kilometers from the city center, and they cost me to charge a month. Let me just get this here. I'll just tell you how much it costs me to drive a scooter here. A new energy vehicle scooter that does top speed of about 60 kilometers. It's brand new. The whopping cost of that is 83 cents a month to charge.
Wow.
That's what it costs me a month to charge. But there's one last thing that I want to talk about with the new energy vehicles. And I think people, whether you like it or not, it's coming. Randall, just to let you know, Shenju, how much does the CCP? Randall, show some respect. It's CPC. Okay, not CCP, just so you know. But thanks anyway. Okay, so there's a comment that I want to make, and I want to let you try to dissect this with me, Carl. Imagine taking new energy vehicles to North America in, let's say, not the full size family of 6, but let's say just a typical sedan with limited mileage. Let's say mileage per charge of, let's say 200 to 250 kilometers. Okay. Right. Enough to drive around the city all day. Imagine replacing the entire home, food, package, and taxi companies completely with a new energy vehicle. First of all, some of these vehicles, which I have a video coming out next week, Some of
But
these,
you know what?
some of these cars start at $4,000. The top ends are about 60 grand, but what you get for 60 grand is like massively beautiful. But most of these cars are under, I would say, for, let's call it generic delivery or somebody that would drive an Uber or something like that, $20,000. Now, the running costs, in my office, I have 80 people, okay? I would say at least 50% of them drive new energy vehicles now, okay?
Wow.
At least 50% of them. I asked them,
like,
how much of a savings is it for fuel compared? 80 to 90% more money in their pocket.
wow.
This is what I'm saying. This could seriously change.
Alex, I'm gonna play devil's advocate here.
Please play devil's advocate. Please.
That's not gonna work in North America because you know what? Even if the U.S. government allowed BYD to sell its like $10,000 electric vehicles, which actually will satisfy a lot of needs, even if that happens, U.S. electric grid won't be able to support it because, first of all, there's not enough charging stations. Even if they build out enough charging stations, the U.S. electric grid won't be able to support it because I saw a graph of the U.S. electricity generation for the last 20 years. It's like flat. It's like flat. Whereas China goes up like this. You know, China electric grid. This is what Janet Yellen is complaining about Chinese overcapacity because China builds for excessive capacity because it built for growth. Whereas in U.S., all the utility companies that have been privatized, they're trying to squeeze out as much profit off the existing grid. They don't want to invest in excessive capacity because that's eating into profit. And what you're going to have if you get a freak storm or weather condition, you know, people in Texas freeze their ass off. I mean, but because there's no excess capacity. So even if you allow the EV cars to proliferate, it's not going to work. U.S. don't have the excessive power generation to support it. I'm sorry. There's no infrastructure for it.
But let's say, for example, like I'm at this car show, right? And let's say an American, it doesn't have to, and I'm not talking about the whole power grid thing, but let's say a guy in the United States has a delivery business or maybe a taxi business, and he can get these cars into United States quietly, of course, paying the customs duties, paying the tariffs, still a lot cheaper. Look at the competitive advantage that individual has. Like, you're not going to, maybe I've been out of America a long time in Canada. I'm not sure how many Uber drivers are profitable driving a Tesla, a battery powered Tesla in the city. I mean, that's an expensive car. But imagine a guy rolls in there, says, okay, got to stay uniform. The car's got to be black, got decent rims, $15,000, $18,000 landed cost in the US, pay a bit of import export duty tax. And the guy's rolling around the city for like profit margin on the guys that have to pay gas. And these cars are, you know, from what people keep thinking, these cars have much less moving parts on them, and they're not as high maintenance as people think they are.
Well, Alex, that's why U.S. government will never allow that to happen, Alex.
I know, but we say that, but
Elon Musk knew that. He said if it's not for the tariffs, the Chinese EV makers are gonna kill all the traditional ICE cars in Detroit. All the big.
Okay, so let's not say it's America. Let's say these cars end up in the other 152 Belt and Road BRI countries. I mean, this is massive. This is what I'm talking about. This is not necessarily about environment for these cars. It's about actually helping the average person that is burdened by so much expense. A car is a massive expense to people. Crazy. Can you imagine that you and I have been born into a society where they tell us, Hey, Alex. Hey, Carl. Go out. Spend 40 to 50 grand. Oh, yeah. While you're at it, finance the goddamn thing. I don't know, between 8 to 10% lending. And the moment you drive it off the parking lot, okay, you've lost 30% of the value. And you've done this over and over and over and over and over again in your lifetime. I've counted my sister since she's been a school teacher. She's probably lost $250,000 on depreciation on vehicles. And at the end of the day, it's an environment that has, and we don't understand that propaganda is very, if you don't believe that United States, Canada, the collective West are great at propaganda, turn on your bloody television on the weekend and watch these commercials come at you full force. It's not just government propaganda, but it's also, you know, private sector propaganda where it comes slamming at you. You got to get this truck, get it today because it's new, and you will make your next door neighbor will feel humiliated. And then the neighbor sees you drive in with a new car. You're like, what year's that? It's 2022. Oh, 2 years old. Yeah. Are you going to upgrade? You know, that word upgrade. And that's the thing, is that these other countries are going to get rich by following this game plan and bringing this types of vehicles into their country. Doesn't mean they got to, replace the entire automotive. Yes, muscle cars in America can still have their day in the sun. They always will have it. All I'm saying is that these cars are here. There is a staggering amount of investment going on here. You cannot imagine how much money and time. And here's the other thing, Carl, is these cars not just cars, e-bikes. There's so much collaboration.
I envy you people living in China, man. You can easily get a $10,000 decent electric vehicle from BYD. Like those cars, once they're out of China, the price goes like double.
You'll like this. At the Canton Fair, I went and I saw this little car, right? It was a cute little car. It had one seat in the front, two in the back. And I said to this guy, I said, Leonard, he goes, oh, it's great, Leonard. I said, what kind of car is this? He says, it's YD. I said, sorry? He says, it's not BYD, it's just YD. And I started cracking up laughing. I said, well, what? Well, he says, BYD's taken from someone. So he says, I call it YD. I said, what does YD mean? Well, I don't know. I just call it YD. But I'm telling you, it's very interesting. I think the average person has no idea that you certainly can replace an entire capacity of vehicles in staggering numbers. And these numbers still are not very big. They're not massively impressive numbers yet. But if these cars start to get shipped out to some of these countries, there's a massive competitive advantage on any business right now. If you can get these cars in and eliminate 90% of your expenses, I think that would hold a lot to do. There's a lot of these Amazon guys out there selling. They drive their own trucks and cars, delivery companies, food companies.
About the overcapacity, about the Chinese export. If you look at the numbers, actually the largest number of the Chinese EV export are Teslas. Teslas and other, because they're counted as Chinese EV exports, but the Chinese EV makers, their biggest market is still China's domestic market, because Chinese car market is now the world's largest market, largest automobile market. It's twice the size of U.S. car market. That's how big it is. And right now their goal for the Chinese EV maker is still to kill the traditional ICE car makers in China. This is where the excessive capacity comes from, because all these GMs and Volkswagen, Toyotas that in China, they don't want to just abandon their production line they already put money into. So they're still cranking out all these ICE cars, but all the Chinese consumers are now switching over to buying EV cars. You know, the last month the new car sales, nearly 50% of the new car sales are new energy vehicles in China. And you know,
it's staggering, huh?
We're talking about the world's we're talking about the world's largest car market here, and so, but all the traditional car maker are still cranking out the ICE cars because they don't want their production line go idle. So this is where the overcapacity came from, and to you know, to solve that problem, they export it back to their home market. You know, the German automakers so bring those cars back to Europe, and Tesla is also, you know, doing its part to exporting Teslas from China's Shanghai Gigafactory. So this is what they're talking about, China flooding the world with car exports. You know, the devil is always in the details. But anyway, that's just.
So I just want to say to everybody, if you're watching this, head over to Carl's channel, Carl ZHA. He gets a lot of people watching on your X account, 2,526 on your X account. Unbelievable. If you're watching from his Twitter account, hop over to his YouTube account as well and subscribe to his channel. You know, I'm going to say something that I haven't really said on this show, but I'm going to actually have, not next show, but maybe in the future, since we have quite an active comment section, I'm going to invite some of the people that have a very, we'll call it, different lens of China onto the program, so that maybe they can share either their experience or their inside knowledge of some of the stuff that I'm unaware of in a country that I'm actually living in. It would be the most beneficial to me to maybe learn something if people think that there are some things going on here that I'm unaware of. But I would love to welcome these people onto the program. And that's why in the chat, I tell everybody to be polite with each other. The good news is we keep the chat open because we want to hear everybody's view. And I think everybody should have a word. But for all those people that really want to get an audience, what I'll do is maybe not next week's show, but in a few weeks, and we'll bring Carl on here too, the Walking Encyclopedia. And what we'll do is I have a new device called the Rode Podcaster 2, which will allow call-ins from guests, whether you're on Skype, WeChat, phone number, WhatsApp, or whatever. We'll have all those available to you, and would like to have not everybody that agrees with us. We will let a lot of the people that say, hey, you're delusional, or your audience needs to know this, or get out while you can, those types, we'll have those onto the program. And I guarantee you, I will give you a big audience to talk to, and you can teach us maybe some things that we're missing. I look forward to that. The other thing is that Carl ZHA also has a Twitter feed. What's your handle on Twitter, Carl?
Just Carl ZHA. Just my name.
Carl ZHA. Okay. And pay attention to this guy's YouTube channel. It's growing quite well. I'm also seeing that you do some recaps of the program. So if you guys can't take the whole show in, Carl takes it to, an extra step there. And this stuff takes time to edit. I'm sure you've done a really good job of editing some of our programs here in the past. And it also opens up to other people that don't have, I see you between 16 to 20 minutes. If you guys don't have the full time to watch the videos here, and you cut them up in categories. That's great, Carl. I'm just looking at that. Another thing that I want to know is, Do you have, are you Patreon? Do you have anything like that, Carl, that we can tell the audience about?
Yes.
Please,
Go to Patreon.
please tell everybody.
I have my Silk and Steel podcast on Patreon. Just search Silk in patreon.com. The first result is my podcast, Silk and Steel podcast, where I talk about everything about China, history, culture, politics. Currently, I'm doing a chronological retelling of Chinese history from very beginning. I'm already at 530 BC. So, I already couple thousand years, so I still have another 2,500 years to go. So check that out.
Just so the audience, I can update the audience. These live streams will be picking up as well. I'm going to be on the satellite TV here in China, first time ever, starting actually tomorrow morning. I record my first show in the studio, but I will be on 104 times here in the next year here with my own show on the satellite, the domestic channels here in China. The show is called Let's Meet. That will be done to the Chinese audience, sharing our experiences and foreigners' experiences here in China as well. I just want to say thanks to everybody, and thanks to Scott Ritter, who joined the program and gave us his in-depth view. Unfortunately, Carl didn't get too much time to spend with him tonight, but we will recap that. And I think you guys like that when I bring Carl and Scott onto this program. I take the back seat. And I'm going to do that a little bit in the future live streams that come up, because we have a lot more equipment coming up here. If you see my eyes are always, that's usually the camera there, but there's a lot of pieces going on behind this show. And if we're going to take it up a notch, we'll get Carl and probably Scott to take the lead in the discussions. And then maybe at the end of the show, we'll have it, we'll call it open mic or open lines, maybe for 30 minutes. And of course, we'll find a way that we can get the most interesting people on the program. Okay, well, Carl, I really appreciate you giving me a few hours of your time here tonight. I know you just got off an airplane. Thank your wife for me. And everybody, what do you think, Carl? Should we go to, you want to, where should we go tonight? I got Chongqing, I got Shanghai. Let's play a bit of Shanghai and some music. You guys okay with that, to say goodbye to everybody? All right, you cool. I think you should head off to your Twitter account. You got a lot of people on there too, and over 300 on YouTube. We'll see you guys in the comment section, guys. We'll chat soon. Thanks again, Carl. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.